Hey, what's up guys? I'm back for another video. This is Bike Time Season 1, Episode 2. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2020 Ducati Panigale V2 and why I think it's the best bike of 2020. At least so far out of the bikes that have came out. And even out of the bikes that have been announced, I think by the end of the year that, in my opinion, the 2020 Panigale V2 will end up being the best bike of 2020, period. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys 5 reasons why. The first big reason is the power. And people like to say, well, the Panigale V2 for the same price, you can get a liter bike like a CBR 1000. Why would you get less power but pay the same money? And guys, the first thing is, this doesn't really answer that question, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about my personal opinion on this real quick, and then I'll get to why I think the V2 is actually really worth the price and for the power, But the thing is, like a 1000, it's too much. It's too much for the street, really. And I understand that there's novelty in it. Like there's novelty in saying, oh yeah, my bike's a 1000cc inline 4. Like there's just like saying you ride a ZX-10R or whatever, there's novelty in that, and it's a cool thing. It's bragging rights, and that's the first thing. And the second thing is, on the highway, some of you guys might actually use a little bit of the power of the 1000, at least a little bit more than a 600, But the point I'm getting at is, I can almost guarantee that none of you watching this can just go hop on a 1000 and you're going to be like, oh yeah, this is just enough power. Like you're going to be babying it a lot around turns and stuff, to be honest. And you might feel like you're going fast, but the truth is you're probably not even close to the limit of the 1000cc bike. So it really is too much. It's overkill. I mean, big time overkill. Really, on the street, a 600 is overkill. But at the same time, it is nice to have the power. So that's why the mid-tier bikes are kind of the sweet spot, because you got just the right amount of power to have fun, but it's still tameable. It's enough to scare you, and it's enough to get you in big trouble, but it's manageable. Whereas bikes like the ZX-10R, or like even say a Panigale V4, they're a lot harder to manage. They're a lot harder to turn. They're bigger. They're heavier. They have a lot more power, and you're never going to be able to use that power. That's the thing. So when people say, hey, you could buy a CBR 1000 for the same price, why wouldn't you just do that? Well, that doesn't even matter to me, because I didn't want a 1000, I wanted a mid-tier bike. And that's the thing about the Ducati. And that's the reason why I'd say the price is very justified. It has all of the goodies of a 1000 and all of the technology and all of the engineering put into it, but yet it's a mid-tier bike. So it has a lot of features that you're not going to find on any other mid-tier bike at all. That brings me to my second point. The second reason that I think that the 2020 Ducati Panigale V2 is going to be the best bike of 2020 is because Ducati listened to the consumer. Like, people wanted a mid-tier bike, but they wanted the 1000 tech. And they wanted the 959 to have the single-sided swing arm. They wanted the 959 to have the looks and attention put into it that the V4 got. Because you're buying a Ducati. And part of the reason, you're paying for the brand name and all of that, people want the single-sided swing arm. Like, that's part of the Ducati DNA and heritage, So Ducati just really did listen to the consumer, which is something that's actually pretty rare in all motorsports, motorcycles and cars, because they took the 959, which is already a great bike, and it had great power, nothing wrong with the power, but then they added a TFT dash and all of that, and the single-sided swing arm, and the looks of the V4, and they kept it, still around the same price point. And that's something that, like, you don't see in other brands. Like, which brings me into my next point. I'll go even deeper on this. And the third reason that I think that the 2020 Ducati Panigale V2 will probably be the best bike of 2020 is the technology. You got the auto blipper. Not only do you have the quick shifter, you have the auto blipper. You have wheelie control, which works very well. Traction control, and you have a bunch of settings. Works very well too. You have engine brake control, which is incredible, You put on the highest setting, and it is very strong engine braking. But then you put it on the lowest setting, and it's almost no engine braking. It's truly amazing. So you can't go buy an R6 with these things. You can't even really necessarily add them to an R6 or a Gixxer 600. I mean, technically you could, but especially like the single-sided swing arm and whatnot. And you got the Showa front forks, fully adjustable, Sachs rear monoshock, Brembo brakes, which are amazing, by the way. Great brake feel, very powerful. And then, you got the TFT dash, and you have a steering stabilizer too, and it's on a mid-tier bike. That's something that you definitely don't see. The Ducati 959 or V2, since it's a twin, an L twin or a V twin, whatever. It really is equivalent to a 750 inline 4. So it would be kind of in the same class as the Gixxer 750. So, where's the Japanese 750s that have all this tech? Zero. Where's the Japanese 600s that have this tech? Zero. There's no other mid-tier bikes that have been paid this much attention. Ducati seriously put their attention into the mid-tier bike and made it feel like, it was a very important bike to their brand and like it mattered. And that's something that I really appreciate, and I think a lot of people appreciate. And it's rare to see. But that brings me to the next point. The fourth reason that I think that the Ducati Panigale V2 is the best bike of 2020 is the looks. You got those LEDs all around, which, for a bike at this price point, obviously, you're going to have LEDs. But the way that the turn signals are integrated into the mirrors, and they stop people from putting those flush mounts on. Not that there's anything wrong with flush mounts, it's just not my preference. But those integrated turn signals in the mirror are beautiful. And then you got the single-sided swing arm. I mean, come on, obviously. And then you got that body of the V4, which is just absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. It really is. Just the whole front with the headlights and that wraparound taillight in the rear. It just is such a beautiful, beautiful bike. And that TFT on it. Even, like the Brembos are pretty too. Like, it's just such an amazing looking bike. It doesn't look like a mid-tier bike. It really does just look premium. It looks like a flagship model. And it's definitely the best looking mid-tier bike, without a doubt. I think the R6 is up there too, honestly. because the R6 is a very well styled bike, but I think the single-sided swing arm and that Sachs monoshock just really pushed the Ducati up to the next level when it comes to looks. And the last thing that I'm going to say makes the 2020 Ducati Panigale V2 the best bike of 2020 is the comfort, which is probably strange to hear, because anywhere you go on the internet you're going to hear, oh my gosh, it's too hot, it's way too hot. And okay, it is hot, you know, it's toasty. Specifically the seat, and I've mentioned it before, I've made a whole video on it, but the reason that the seat gets so hot is because the exhaust wraps around right under the seat. It's kind of like if you have an undertail, like on a CBR, the passenger seat gets very hot. Well, on the Ducati, it's the driver's seat. So yeah, it does get toasty, but it doesn't get, in my opinion, way hotter than my brother's R6. It does get warm. The seat definitely does get warmer, but Ducati for 2020 added a really nice, thick, comfortable padded seat that you could check out in my full review of the bike. But it does a lot better of a job than the 959 seat did. And as I said, it's padded, so it's comfier. And the bike is a little bit lower in the front than in the rear, which is interesting for me, because you would think that would put a lot of weight on your wrists, but in reality I don't feel a lot of weight on my wrists on the V2. And I think the reason for that is the clip-ons are kind of out more, like wider, whereas on like an R6, for example, they're more tucked, so your wrists are more cocked. You know, you understand what I'm saying? It puts more pressure on them. But on the V2, you got that little bit of a wider grip, and it really does feel comfortable to me. And when I scoot up, see, I'm only 5'6", and if I scoot up all the way on the tank, you know, nuts on the tank, then I could sit pretty upright to where my neck isn't totally hunched over all the time. So my wrists are feeling better than if I was on a Japanese bike for the most part, you know. Just stating the truth, not that there's anything wrong with Japanese bikes. And the seat is comfier as well, because the seat's padded very nicely. And the way the suspension is dampened is an interesting one too, because it actually does handle, and picture, I'm talking straight from the dealership. I haven't fiddled with my settings, because you can soften the suspension, obviously. But right from the dealership, it's dampened in a way that when you hit potholes and you hit little rivets in the road, it's not jarring. It's not super jarring. But at the same time, when you're coming through corners, it stays so planted, and it feels so tight. So it's really an incredible setup. But you bring all those things together, and it makes such a comfortable bike. A bike that's so comfortable that you can forgive the fact that it's hot. So those are my 5 reasons why I think the 2020 Ducati Panigale V2 is the current best bike of 2020, and I think it'll stay that way. As I said, my Bike Time series, I'll be releasing a new video every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it'll be about relevant news in the bike community. I started off this video, which is my second Bike Time video, about the V2 because it's a bike that I own, so it's easier for me and get my feet wet with this series. And because I own the bike, I have first-hand experience with the bike, so you know, that might mean something to you guys. But anyhow, if you guys like the video, then go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you probably noticed that the picture quality here is a lot different than it has been. And that's because I bought a camera, and I bought lights, and I bought a lot, okay? Because I'm very dedicated to this. The YouTube is my new passion. I love making these videos, honestly. So I'm invested in my gear, I'm invested in my skills, and my content quality should go up. So if you guys are interested in seeing where I go with this, go ahead and subscribe. If you like the video or you got any value out of it, go ahead and like it. And if you agree with me or you disagree with me, go ahead and let me know in the comments. And I answer all of my comments. So if you guys have any questions or anything of that nature, go ahead and fire away, and I'll answer to the best of my ability, because I answer every single one of them. So thank you guys for tuning in to another one of my videos.